Gene Hackman, a cinematic legend, spent his final days in his Santa Fe home with the lifeless body of his wife, Betsy, in the bathroom, a chilling scene that would haunt anyone who witnessed it. Medical reports suggest that Hackman's health had significantly deteriorated after Betsy's death. These seemingly ordinary photos, upon being revisited after their passing, suddenly become strange fragments revealing cold shadows, unanswered questions about isolation, family conflicts, and untold mysteries. It raises the question, did Gene Hackman fully understand the tragedy he was about to face, or was he drawn into an inescapable web of intrigue? More importantly, what message was he trying to convey through the weak smiles and lifeless gazes in those final photographs? In today's video, we'll explore the 5 final photos of Gene Hackman images that sparked confusion and left the world questioning the mysterious death of this Hollywood legend. Don't miss the shocking revelations about the last moments of Gene Hackman's life. One of Hackman's final moments was captured on March 28, 2024, at the Speedway convenience store in Santa Fe. It was an ordinary day, with no special events, and Hackman looked like any other elderly man. In this photo, he wore a loose jacket, faded jeans, holding a cup of coffee and a small apple pie, looking humble and far removed from the confident figure audiences remembered from his legendary roles. It may not seem like an extraordinary photo, but it carries a powerful message about the ravages of time and the inevitable changes in the life of a legend. Looking at this photo, we can clearly see the contrast between the Hackman of today and the Hackman of the past. He is no longer the strong man from the French Connection or the tough detective in Unforgiven. Instead, he appears as a weary old man, struggling with mundane tasks like shopping for snacks at a convenience store. But more deeply, this photo serves as a reminder of the destructive power of time and health as Hackman grapples with age-related ailments, including heart disease and Alzheimer's. An important detail in this photo is the cane Hackman holds, a clear symbol of the physical decline he's enduring. This photo isn't just a casual moment, it encapsulates loneliness and the fading of life. The setting of the photo is also significant, as Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, had chosen a secluded life in Santa Fe since his retirement in 2004. It was a peaceful space, yet one that gradually caused them to lose connection with the outside world, leading to tragedy when no one recognized the severity of their health issues until it was too late. The photo at Speedway not only reflects the loneliness in Hackman's eyes, but also mirrors a life he chose, far from the Hollywood spotlight, living a quiet life with his wife and pets. Another photo, taken at home with Betsy and their dogs, reveals the peaceful life they built in their later years. Their dogs, Bee and Nikita, became important companions, helping Hackman through tough times. While their life in Santa Fe lacked the glamour of Hollywood, it reflected a simple, loving life that Hackman and Betsy had chosen. Gene Hackman spent his final days in isolation, inside his home in Santa Fe, with the body of his wife, Betsy. Medical reports indicate that Hackman's health significantly declined after his wife's death. The once ordinary photos, now posthumously viewed, have become strange fragments, revealing cold shadows, isolation, family conflicts, and unresolved mysteries. This raises the question, did Gene Hackman fully understand the tragedy awaiting him, or was he caught in an inescapable mystery? And what message was he trying to convey through the faint smiles in those final photos? Let's uncover the shocking truths behind Hackman's last photos before his passing. Finally, the photo capturing Hackman and Betsy dining at a small restaurant in Santa Fe serves as a testament to the simple life they chose after leaving Hollywood. This warm scene not only reflects the peace in their relationship, but also highlights a significant shift in Hackman's life. It's a stark contrast to the glamorous life he once led, now replaced by the simplicity they embraced. While the public knows Hackman as a cinematic legend, this photo reminds us that everyone has their final simple moments, and even legends cannot escape the harsh passage of time. Gene Hackman lived a life of solitude and quiet in his final years. The photo capturing a simple moment between him and his wife Betsy Arakawa at a convenience store in Santa Fe has become a symbol of the profound changes in Hackman's life. No longer the celebrated movie star, Hackman now appears as an elderly, tired, and humble man. But beyond the ravages of time, this photo also reflects the deep emotional voids in his family life, particularly the isolation in his relationship with his wife and children. What is portrayed in this photo only makes the moment more haunting. While it's undeniable that the photo shows the peaceful life Hackman and Betsy built, it also evokes a quiet sense of exhaustion and emotional stillness in their relationship. A simple photo of an elderly couple, yet it holds within it questions about dependence and power in their bond. The question of control in Hackman's life as he aged, could it be a sign of the emotional loss between him and his wife? The photo not only captures the weariness of a man who was once a legend, but also the loneliness, the lack of connection, a sense of emptiness that only those involved could truly understand. The vacant gaze, the smiles devoid of warmth, all create a complex portrait of the final years of a great cinematic star's life. And so all these questions, the speculations about Hackman and Betsy's relationship, can only be understood within the broader picture of their lives and deaths. While the photo captures a simple moment, void of crowds or fanfare, deep down, we also sense the loneliness, the invisible distance between them, serving as a symbol of the abrupt end in the life of a legend. While the photo initially conveys a sense of calm, it's the absence of emotional connection between Hackman and Betsy that makes it haunting. Could the silence and distance between them be a sign of isolation in their marriage? Close friends of Hackman, after his death, revealed that Betsy was the one who primarily controlled his life in his final years, from where he went and who he met to his daily routines. The lack of emotional interaction between Hackman and Betsy in the photo only amplifies the sense of dependence and loss of autonomy Hackman experienced, highlighting the stark changes in their lives. Although Hackman chose Santa Fe to seek peace, away from the spotlight and noise of Hollywood, this isolation painted a somber picture of an aging star living in darkness, disconnected from the world around him. His relationship with his wife, Betsy, became so lonely that it prevented him from rebuilding a bond with his children, especially his son, Christopher. This became even more apparent after Hackman's death, when Christopher remained silent and never publicly expressed any grief. Christopher's silence only deepens the suspicions about the emotional distance between them. The final photos of Gene Hackman leave us shocked and questioning whether his emotional rift with his children had anything to do with his death. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments, and if you have any topics you'd like us to explore further, feel free to share with us. Moreover, the investigation into Hackman's will after his death raised many questions about his relationship with his children. Unusual revisions in the will sparked controversy and conflicting testimonies from his children. This only highlighted the breakdown in Hackman's family dynamic, reflecting the deep wounds he had endured throughout his life. The skiing photo with his children concealed a significant rift, one that was only revealed after his passing, when his relationship with his son Christopher became irreparable. Christopher chose silence as a way to express his feelings. perhaps as a subtle reproach toward a father who was absent during the most crucial moments of his life. Among the last widely published photos of Gene Hackman, one stands out not for its tranquility or somberness, but because it represents a pivotal moment in his life. It's a photo of Hackman as a young soldier, wearing his U.S. Marine Corps uniform, taken around 1946 when he was just 16 years old. This photo is not just a snapshot in time, it symbolizes a significant milestone, a humble yet determined starting point that shaped Hackman's character and paved the way for his illustrious career. Born into an unhappy family, Hackman faced emotional and psychological challenges from a young age. Joining the Marine Corps at such a young age was his journey in search of stability and purpose, something he felt his family couldn't provide during a post-World War II era, a time of chaos and complexity. As a radio operator, Hackman was deployed to geopolitical hotspots such as China, Japan, and Hawaii, areas still deeply affected by the aftershocks of war. His involvement in crucial missions in these regions helped forge a disciplined, determined, and resilient young man. These qualities later became the foundation for his success on the Hollywood screen. When looking at the photo of Hackman in his Marine Corps uniform, the first thing that stands out is the strength and determination radiating from him. His unwavering, confident gaze reflects the inner resolve of a young man who left his family to embark on a challenging yet promising journey. Gone is the tired, frail figure of his later years, replaced by a Hackman full of youthful energy, ideals, and ambition. This image creates a stark contrast with the public's final memories of Hackman in his twilight years. In photos taken at the Speedway convenience store or a Santa Fe restaurant, we see an elderly Hackman slowly moving with assistance, his gaze no longer radiating the decisive strength of his younger days. The frailty in Gene Hackman's later years stands in stark contrast to the military photo of him as a young soldier, strong, upright, radiating confidence and control over his fate. This contrast isn't just about age and physicality. It reflects a profound shift in spirit, showing how life shaped him at every stage. This photo isn't just a memory of the past, but carries powerful symbolic meaning, serving as a reminder that all legends, no matter how great, begin with humble and ordinary moments. Gene Hackman wasn't born a Hollywood star or a cinematic legend. He started his adult life as an unknown young soldier, facing challenges and uncertainty in a world in turmoil. Hackman's military experience after the war instilled in him a sense of discipline, decisiveness, resilience, and calm strength. These qualities became integral to his unique and successful acting style in Hollywood. Many critics and film analysts have pointed out that Hackman's time in the military deeply influenced his understanding of human nature, emotional control, and his ability to convey authenticity in his roles. The performances he brought to life on the big screen often mirrored the essence of a young Marine. Tough, determined, sometimes gritty, but always infused with a deep emotional complexity. Roles like Popeye Doyle in The French Connection and Little Bill Daggett in Unforgiven are prime examples of how Hackman's military past shaped his acting career. The photo of Hackman as a young Marine is not just a relic of a distant past, but a vivid reflection of his inner journey. It illustrates the transformation of an unknown teenager searching for purpose into a seasoned man with strong willpower who ultimately became a globally respected cinematic icon. In this photo, we see the purest version of Gene Hackman before fame, fortune, and time altered his life. The image not only captures a pivotal historical moment in Hackman's life, but also opens a window into his core identity. It reminds us that the journey of a legend is built on moments of struggle, perseverance, and growth. Behind the glamorous exterior of a Hollywood star lies the raw, unrefined humanity of a man who began his path in the humblest way imaginable. In the final years of his life, the tragic and mysterious death of Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, captured significant attention from the public and media. The couple passed away in complete isolation at their Santa Fe home, a horrifying truth that went undetected for weeks. This raised countless questions, uncovering the quiet, deeply painful life of the legendary cinematic icon in the twilight of his years. The presence of unfamiliar individuals near Hackman's home added complexity to the investigation, with conflicting testimonies and a series of unresolved suspicions. One notable aspect of the investigation was Leslie Hackman's involvement with the revised will. This raised doubts about her motives and possibly played a role in the changes made to Gene Hackman's estate. The relationship between Leslie and her father had been strained, and her becoming the primary beneficiary of the will near the end of Hackman's life sparked many questions. Disagreements between Leslie and other family members only thickened the layers of mystery surrounding Hackman's death. Leslie also testified that her father showed signs of paranoia in his final days, worried that someone was intentionally trying to harm him. She described strange occurrences, like the presence of strangers near their home, along with concerns about being poisoned or targeted. While these statements have yet to be verified, they paint a dark picture of Hackman's last days, a cinematic legend, and raise a series of questions about what truly transpired. However, after investigators cross-referenced Leslie's testimony with information from surrounding witnesses, they found no evidence to support the claim that strangers had been near Hackman's residence. Despite this, it wasn't the end of the investigation, as suspicions about the motives behind his death and the circumstances surrounding the will continued to raise unanswered questions. After the official investigation concluded and Gene Hackman's death was ruled as natural causes, questions about his isolation and health continued to arise. Despite the clear medical conclusion, the public continued to speculate about unresolved factors, questioning whether his loneliness and isolated living situation truly contributed to his tragic end. Could his late-stage Alzheimer's and lack of proper care have accelerated his decline? Gene Hackman's death became a mystery, surrounded by speculation about complex family dynamics and his isolation in his final years. A man once a cinematic legend, admired by millions, who ultimately ended his life in solitude, leaving the public heartbroken and uneasy. The story behind Hackman's passing is not just about the death of a great actor, but a warning about the effects of isolation and how family conflicts and aging can impact one's life. Despite being a legend in the eyes of the public, Hackman couldn't escape the fragility of his personal life, where shadows and untold secrets always loomed. And so, we've explored the 5 mysterious final photos of Gene Hackman, moments that may seem simple but are filled with unanswered questions. Has the truth about his death been fully revealed, or are there still secrets left untold? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any exciting videos ahead. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Welcome to our channel. Today, we will uncover an untold secret about a Hollywood legend, Gene Hackman. In a recent investigation, authorities discovered a hidden object, a piece of the puzzle no one wanted to face. What was discovered not only changes our perception of Hackman, but it could also overturn the entire truth about his final days. These revelations are not just shocking, but they make all previous theories seem meaningless. And the scariest part is, this is just the beginning. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think really happened? In the investigation of Gene Hackman, they discovered something that shouldn't exist. A hidden object. A piece of the puzzle no one wanted to face. It not only changes our perception of Hackman, but could also overturn the entire truth about his final days. What was uncovered is not just shocking, but it renders all previous theories meaningless. And this is just the beginning. Gene Hackman's home in Santa Fe, New Mexico was always known as a peaceful sanctuary, where the legendary actor spent most of his final years with his wife, Betsy Arakawa. However, after both passed away, the cleanup and investigative team discovered a room that seemed to have been unknown to anyone, a locked door that had silently existed in the house for years. According to some close associates, Gene Hackman never mentioned this room, and even the butler's friends and frequent guests had never entered it. When asked about the door, Hackman would simply shake his head, sometimes quickly changing the subject. Its existence felt like a secret he wished to bury, a part of himself that no one was allowed to touch. But after the house was emptied, when the cleaning crew and police began searching every nook and cranny to complete their investigation, they discovered that the door had been locked from the outside, as if someone wanted to ensure it would never be opened. After several attempts, the door was finally unlocked, and what they found inside left everyone speechless. The room wasn't as desolate as they had imagined. While dust covered many shelves and bookshelves, the desk in the center was strangely clean, with an old typewriter neatly placed on it, a sheet of paper still in the tray, mid-typing. The desk lamp, though old, was ready to turn on at any moment. Strangely, the bookshelf contained books yellowed by time, but all were related to the same theme: criminal law and unsolved cases. Some books had pencil notes. Others had several pages marked. Most notably, a drawer in the desk was unlocked, and when opened, it revealed a collection of handwritten drafts and even letters that had never been sent. One of the most striking documents in the pile was a manuscript titled "The Truth We Bury." The words on it were still intact, the ink fresher than the other papers, as if someone had used the typewriter not long before the room was locked. The first pages describe a main character, a veteran Hollywood actor, a man who had lived a glorious life but carried a secret no one knew. The story centers around an event from the past, something the character never wanted to mention, and the mysterious room he tried to keep hidden from the world's gaze. Each line felt like a chilling prophecy. Although unfinished, the manuscript seemed to reflect Gene Hackman's own life, either a strange coincidence or containing a message he didn't have time to send. Beside the manuscript was a stack of letters, many of which were never sent. They were neatly arranged, some old and yellowed, while others looked fairly recent, as though they had been written not long ago. One of them was addressed to someone no one had ever heard of, a completely unfamiliar name, not belonging to any of Gene Hackman's friends, family, or colleagues. The contents of the letter were filled with fragmented sentences, as if the writer had carefully pondered before writing, "There are things I regret, things I should have said long ago, but some truths are better left buried." Was it a confession or just a forgotten page of the writer's thoughts? No one can say for sure, but the presence of these letters made the room even more eerie. Alongside the manuscript and letters were other items in the room that raised even more questions. A faded photograph, face down on the desk, revealed the image of a young woman with an unknown identity. When flipped over, the back of the photo had a short, handwritten note, "A memory I will never forget." Rough sketches on paper depicted a house no one recognized. Some notes were scattered around, including small pieces of paper with mysterious lines of dialogue. The excerpts were out of context, such as, "They will come looking, but they will not find." All of this suggests that Gene Hackman had an undisclosed past. But is it simply a product of imagination, or does it reflect something that truly happened? This room seemed like a secret archive Hackman never wanted anyone to uncover. But now, with the door opened, new questions arise. Why was this room locked for so many years? Who was the last person to use the typewriter? Were the letters truly sent? Or are the lines in the manuscript purely fictional? Or perhaps a reflection of something real? And most importantly, is there something else hidden inside that hasn't been uncovered yet? The answers may lie elsewhere in the house. Or they could simply be mysteries Gene Hackman intended to carry with him forever. But with what has been discovered, one thing is certain. That door is now open, and nothing can ever close it again. Gene Hackman's locked room has revealed unexpected secrets, but it seems the most astonishing discovery is yet to come. As they flipped through the scattered papers on the desk and in the old drawers, they found a stack of documents carefully wrapped in a small wooden box. Upon opening it, they found handwritten manuscripts, unreleased scripts. These scripts bore no marks of Hollywood, and no one had ever heard of them. No one knew Gene Hackman was also a screenwriter, but the content of these scripts, particularly a script titled The Last Man on Set, sent chills down the spines of those who read it. Gene Hackman was not only known as an actor, but also as an author. He had co-written several detective novels, but no one knew he also wrote movie scripts. The discovery of these documents raised an important question. Did Hackman intend to make them public, or were these stories something he never wanted anyone to know? The manuscript was handwritten with strong yet somewhat hurried strokes, as if the author was trying to capture the ideas before they faded. Some pages were crossed out and had notes in the margins, sometimes reflecting on inner monologues. From the very first pages, The Last Man on Set radiated a heavy atmosphere, as if it wasn't just fiction, but a part of Gene Hackman's own confession. The title alone evokes a sense of loneliness. The story follows an aging actor, once at the height of fame but slowly abandoned by Hollywood. He wanders through old movie sets, where lights once illuminated his face, but are now cold, the shadows still lingering. The main character, Edward Lane, is an award-winning actor who, in his later years, has been forgotten. Directors who once admired him now work with younger stars, and producers who once pursued him no longer answer his calls. One day, Edward receives an invitation to a deserted studio, the very place where he filmed his first movie. There's no one there, just props, old film reels, and an eerie atmosphere. The story becomes even stranger when Edward discovers that the scenes around him begin to replay dialogue from his past films. Echoes fill the air, and reflections in a glass are not of his current self, but of his younger image from decades ago. But the most chilling part is the ending. In the final scene, Edward Lane stands in a deserted studio, staring directly at the camera and speaking a single line. "They will remember me only when it's too late." The last line of the script feels like a curse, a dark premonition. When those who discovered the manuscript read it, they couldn't help but shudder. Was this just a fictional story, or was it Gene Hackman's own prophecy about his life? A man who distanced himself from the glamour of Hollywood. Throughout his life after retirement, Hackman refused to participate in any film projects, declined interviews, and stayed away from major events. But deep down, he truly wanted to be forgotten. This script seems to reflect his obsession with the decline of fame, a fear that many veteran actors share. Not just Hackman, but unlike others, Hackman didn't cling to the spotlight. He buried it. Although most of The Last Man on Set was complete, some pages were missing, certain dialogues were left unfinished, and scenes were not described in detail. This raises a question. Did Hackman ever intend to finish it? And if so, what stopped him? Among the remaining papers in the wooden box was a small note with handwritten words. "The ending doesn't matter. Anyway, no one will ever see it. These words deeply moved those who read them. Did Hackman accept that his story would never be told? The discovery of the last man on set was just the beginning. Among the remaining documents were other scripts. Each story seemed to carry a part of Hackman's confession, memories encoded into characters, with thoughts hidden behind them. Another script, titled "The Man Who Walked Away," tells the story of a man who chooses to leave the world he once loved. Could this be a metaphor for Hackman's own retirement? Another unfinished script, titled "Fading Shadows," only had a single line. Some actors don't leave the stage leaves them. When these manuscripts were brought to light, more questions arose. Why did Hackman hide these scripts? Did he plan to publish them? Are these stories mere fiction, or do they contain undisclosed truths? But the biggest question remains. Is there something Hackman never said? And if so, are we ready to know? They will remember me only when it's too late. Is this just a line of dialogue? Or a prophecy about Gene Hackman's own fate? Hackman's mysterious room revealed his deepest secrets. Unpublished scripts, stories reflecting the loneliness of a man who once stood at the pinnacle of fame. But amid the dust-covered papers, there was one thing that stood out, a worn envelope, hidden beneath a stack of documents, as if someone had intentionally placed it there so it would never be found. On the trembling envelope, a short but haunting handwritten note, for the one who still remembers. Who was the recipient? Who still remembers? Do we have the courage to face the deep secrets Gene Hackman concealed throughout his life? Don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel to follow more detailed stories like this. Stay tuned. More fascinating things are coming soon. Who was Gene Hackman trying to send this letter to, and why did he never send it? The envelope was so old that the paper was almost disintegrating, yet inside, the letter remained intact, its cursive handwriting still legible. It was a memory of a once strong hand, now trembling slightly as it was opened. Hackman's words immediately silenced the reader. I built a life of characters, but I forgot how to live mine. A simple statement, yet it contains everything a man who devoted his entire life to acting might feel. Gene Hackman wasn't just a screen legend. He was a man who dedicated his entire life to the craft, transforming into dozens of characters, from police officers, villains, and politicians to the rugged men of America. But after all of it, when the stage lights dimmed and the new films stopped coming his way, Hackman faced a painful truth. He no longer knew who he was. In the letter, Hackman writes about the final days of his career when he felt like a shadow in the reality of Hollywood. The place that once celebrated him as one of the greatest actors now forgot his name. There were no calls from directors, no new scripts sent his way. He witnessed younger generations of actors rising, with blockbuster films replacing the artistry of his era. Fame is a strange thing. It comes, uninvited, stays too long, and then disappears without a trace. Hackman recalls his lonely days in Santa Fe, where he left Hollywood to live a simpler life. He wrote about waking up in a large but empty house, one that no longer echoed with the noise of movie sets or received calls from colleagues. He spent his time painting, writing, and reading, but nothing could fill the void in his soul. I thought leaving Hollywood would bring me peace, but peace is just another word for silence. In the letter, Hackman not only speaks of his loneliness but also acknowledges his deepest regrets. He wrote about the opportunities he missed, the people he loved but couldn't keep, the decisions that led him to his current life. One passage left readers in tears. I spent many years playing the men who loved, fought, and lost. In real life, Gene Hackman never seemed to know how to do any of those things. Hackman never mentioned the name of anyone, but there was one name that appeared repeatedly in the lines. M. Who is M? M, an old friend, a lost lover, a colleague with whom Hackman once shared the spotlight. No one knows, but one thing is certain. This was the person Hackman wanted to send the letter to, but never had the courage to do so. At the end of the letter, there's a line that stunned all who read it. I wrote this because I don't want to be forgotten, but perhaps it's too late. This letter should have been sent, but for some reason, Hackman kept it. It lay beneath a stack of documents, a message never delivered to the right person. Perhaps Hackman intended to send it one day but changed his mind, or maybe he realized that no one remembered him anymore. Gene Hackman's films still endure. The French Connection, The Conversation, Unforgiven. The characters he portrayed live on in the minds of audiences. But does anyone truly understand the man behind them? This letter is not only a part of Hackman's life, but also an obsession. A reminder that behind the glamour of Hollywood, behind the prestigious awards, there are people who feel lost in their own lives. And perhaps the most terrifying thing isn't being forgotten, but realizing that we haven't truly lived our own lives. Hackman wrote for the one who still remembers, but the question remains, does anyone still remember him? Beneath the stack of old documents, among forgotten scripts and unsent letters, there was something that didn't belong to any story. An old black-and-white photo, one no one knew existed. It had been seen before, but as the light touched the faded lines on its surface, a strange feeling crept into every corner of the room. This photo shouldn't exist. It's unlike any photo of Gene Hackman ever published. No stage lights, no film cameras, no Hollywood backdrop. Instead, it captures a mysterious, quiet moment. Hackman stands there in a dark suit, his eyes no longer as sharp as usual. He isn't smiling, nor is he acting. The entire photo seems to hold an unsaid secret. Beside Hackman stood an unfamiliar man. No identifying marks, his face serious, eyes staring straight into the camera. Unlike two friends taking a souvenir photo, they seemed more like accomplices in an untold story. But the strangest part wasn't the man, nor the way they stood together, or the haunting silence the photo exuded. The strange part was Hackman himself. People were so familiar with the image of Gene Hackman, the tough man with sharp eyes, a deep voice, and a face marked by years of hard work. But Hackman in this photo was different. There was something in his face, looking younger than in his later years. But it didn't resemble any stage of his career, as if it was taken at a point that didn't exist in Hackman's timeline. Could it be an edited photo, a behind-the-scenes shot from an unreleased film, or a buried memory waiting to be uncovered? Then, when the photo was turned over, the biggest question arose. On the back of the photo was a shaky but clear, handwritten note. It should have been different. Who wrote this? Hackman or someone else? And what does it mean? The photo had no stamp, no date, and no clue about when, where, or who took it. But if Hackman had kept it for years without mentioning it, it clearly held special significance for him. The question is, why did he hide it? One theory suggests that the man in the photo wasn't a stranger, but rather a part of Hackman's life he never wanted to reveal. An old friend, a lost relative, or even another aspect of himself. People always thought of Gene Hackman as a determined man, a talented actor, but also one who disliked pretense. When he left Hollywood, he didn't cling to his career or appear on TV to complain. The public's forgetting, Hackman chose to disappear. But if things had gone differently, what would that mean? Hackman stood at a different crossroads in his life, a path he didn't choose but could never forget. Or worse, maybe someone else chose it for him. The photo holds no answers. It only holds questions. But the scariest part isn't the unanswered questions, but the thought that perhaps Hackman didn't want anyone to uncover the truth. And maybe that's why this photo should never have existed. Among the old papers in Gene Hackman's office, there was one special manuscript. It wasn't like any script he had ever written before. It wasn't a police thriller, a detective story, or a glamorous Hollywood production. It was the story of a man, a legendary actor who once stood at the peak of fame. But one day, the spotlight faded. He no longer received calls from directors, no longer appeared on movie posters. The world had forgotten him. But he never forgot himself. So he created another life, a world where he was still young, where Hollywood was still waiting for him, where he was still the center of every frame. But there was one thing he didn't realize. This wasn't real life. It was just a movie in his mind. The manuscript of this man had no clear title. The pages had yellowed, some lines were crossed out, and some paragraphs seemed to have been written in a moment of intense emotion. But what remained on the paper was sharp and haunting. The story is about a veteran actor who spent his entire life playing magnificent roles. But over time, he realized the world no longer needed him. So, he created a new script. A script only he knew. In it, the phone rings every day. Directors line up to choose him, and awards continue to call his name. He lives in an eternal loop of greatness. Each morning, he puts on a tailored suit, steps into a room filled with flashing lights, signs movie contracts that don't exist, and steps onto a stage where no one sees him. Forever a legend. But then the story takes a darker turn. The protagonist begins to realize the gaps in his world. One day, he picks up the script for his latest movie, but upon closer inspection, every page is blank. He attends a major award ceremony, but when he steps on stage to accept the golden statue, no one claps. In fact, the auditorium is empty. Memories begin to fragment. Familiar faces suddenly blur, no longer as clear as they once were. And then, a horrifying moment occurs. The protagonist walks into the dressing room, looks into the mirror, but instead of seeing himself, he sees a completely unfamiliar face. He tries to recall the pinnacle of his career, but the memories slip through his fingers like sand. The films he had starred in, the characters he had portrayed, all become broken fragments, unable to be pieced together into a coherent story. He no longer remembers who he is. And then, the final line of the manuscript appeared. When the movie ends, he will leave. One can't help but wonder if this was just a fictional script, or if there was something deeper at play. Hackman wrote about himself. He had once been one of Hollywood's biggest stars, but when he stepped away from the screen, he vanished completely. No interviews, no return to the stage. Like the character in the script, Hackman too lived in his own world, where he remained a legend. Or was this his way of confronting the truth, that despite being one of the greatest actors, his name would eventually be forgotten? The manuscript had no date. No one knows when Hackman wrote it. But it's clear this was a story he felt compelled to tell. Perhaps he saw himself in the character, a man trapped between reality and illusion, between the past and the present. And maybe this was his way of saying goodbye. Not to the world, but to the image of himself, the image he had crafted throughout his life. Because when the movie ends, the audience leaves the theater, the lights go out, and the screen fades to black. And then, everything fell into silence. Among the manuscripts, letters, and haunting words that Gene Hackman left behind, there was a small piece of paper, so fragile it seemed that a light breeze could blow it away. It wasn't among the important documents, nor hidden like the letter of regret or the unreleased drafts. It was simply a folded piece of paper, tucked between 2 pages of an old manuscript, and on it was just one sentence. If someone finds this, don't let them forget. The words were unrefined, not conveying desperation or emotion, just simple and decisive. No one knows when Hackman wrote it, or why he left it among the old papers. Was it a plea or an order? Did he know that one day someone would find it? And if so, What did he want them to remember? When Gene Hackman left Hollywood, he vanished almost completely. Unlike other stars who frequently appear in the media, though no longer acting, Hackman chose to withdraw entirely. There were no nostalgic interviews, no red carpet appearances as an honorary guest, no candid photos, only tabloid magazines. His silence mirrored the character in his final script, a man living in a world of his own making. Hackman seemed to have chosen to live in his own reality, separate from the Hollywood spotlight. But the question remains, was he truly alone? Or was there someone by his side that no one knew about? What was found in Hackman's office painted a contradictory picture. There were dusty books, showing they had been forgotten for a long time, but the desk was spotless, as if someone had been regularly cleaning it. There were unfinished manuscripts, but the typewriter still had paper in the tray, as if someone had just stopped writing. There were unsent letters, but the envelopes had been opened, as if someone had read them before putting them back. So, what does this mean? If someone had read them, does anyone know the truth about what Hackman wrote? If so, why didn't they speak up throughout his career? Hackman was always a man of few words, shying away from the Hollywood spotlight and rarely sharing details about his personal life. But the words in the letter, the unpublished scripts, and especially the piece of paper with the mysterious lines suggest that he wanted someone to remember him in a unique way. Not just as a great actor, not just for his legendary roles, but to remember the real man, a man who doubted, regretted, and questioned his own life. The question is whether anyone truly knows these things, or if someone knows but has chosen to remain silent. Hackman's life after leaving Hollywood seems shrouded in mystery. No one knows exactly how he spent his final years. He was once one of the most sought-after actors, yet in the end, no one really understood who he was. What did he want? Or what was his greatest fear? One thing is certain, what was found in that room is not just the legacy of a legend, but an unfinished story, a mystery that may never be fully solved. The truth always finds a way to emerge from the darkness. But the question is, do we have the courage to face it? What was discovered in Hackman's research could change everything, and if Hollywood wants to hide this, perhaps we should ask them what they're afraid of. So the question remains, does anyone truly know the truth about Gene Hackman, or have they simply chosen to remain silent? His life and his final years in silence have left behind a mystery that we may never fully solve. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next intriguing video. See you in the next one. Welcome to our channel. Today, we will explore one of the mysteries that has been buzzing in the community. A key witness, Gene Hackman's neighbor, has finally spoken out and shared shocking information that could completely change the direction of the investigation. Stay tuned to uncover secret details, surprising discoveries, and a story full of suspicion about one of the most controversial events in recent times. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any upcoming videos. On February 26, 2025, the sky over Santa Fe, New Mexico, was shrouded in a cold gray hue. The distant mountains were obscured by the mist that covered Sunset Trail, where the mansion of legendary actor Gene Hackman and his wife, pianist Betsy Arakawa, stood. The house, once filled with warmth and lively conversations from neighbors and strolls through the garden, suddenly became eerily silent. The neighbors, who were used to Hackman's regular presence, began to sense that something was wrong. They no longer saw him walking down the familiar road every morning. Betsy's piano no longer echoed through the windy afternoons. Even their golden Labrador dog was no longer running around the yard as it used to. John Miller, who lived about 3 houses away from the Hackman residence, recalled, "Everything was unusually quiet. We hadn't seen them for several days. This isn't like them. They wouldn't just disappear without any notice." The people in the neighborhood knew that Hackman was very private, but he still maintained a routine. Every morning he would stop by a small nearby cafe, read the newspaper, and chat with the staff. But for the past week, his silver Jeep hadn't been parked outside the cafe, and calls from close friends went unanswered. At first, people thought maybe Hackman and his wife were just away on a trip, enjoying the peace and quiet as they often did. But as the days passed, the sense of unease only grew stronger. On the morning of February 26th, John Miller and his wife, Linda, decided to do something they rarely did: knock on the Hackman's door. They stood in front of the dark brown wooden door, rang the doorbell twice, but no one answered. Linda tried peering through the window, but it was pitch dark inside, with no lights or sounds. They turned around, trying to reassure themselves that Jean and Betsy might just be sleeping or away, but the unease inside them continued to grow. Finally, around 1:30 p.m., John called the Santa Fe police to request a welfare check. About 15 minutes later, 2 police cars arrived. The officers got out of their vehicles, observed the house for a moment, then rang the doorbell again, but still no one answered. One of the officers circled around to check the windows, but there was no sign of forced entry. Eventually, they decided to obtain a search warrant, and by 3 o'clock p.m., the police officially broke down the door. Immediately, a damp and cold atmosphere poured out from the large house. Everything was in place, as if time had stopped. Unwashed teacups sat on the table, and a book lay open on the sofa as if someone had just finished reading it. But what sent a chill through the officers was the absolute silence. There were no barking dogs, no footsteps, no signs of life. They split up to check each room, and then one officer shouted, "We found something in the bathroom." The body of Betsy Arakawa was found motionless. The police quickly determined there were no signs of violence or struggle. Her bedroom was tidy, with no evidence of panic or resistance. Not far from the bathroom was the master bedroom, where Gene Hackman was also found in a similar state. On the bedside table was an old photograph of him and his wife, placed neatly as a lingering memory. Their loyal dog, their companion for many years, lay at the foot of the bed as if it had never left. The officers looked at each other, speechless. The silence enveloped them, much like the atmosphere in the house. In recent days, the big question has been, why didn't anyone call the police sooner? Although Jean and Betsy had been missing for several days, why was it only on February 26th that someone finally called the police? Some neighbors admitted they felt something was off, but no one dared to act. They didn't want to invade the couple's privacy, especially since Gene Hackman was known for not wanting to be disturbed. "We thought they were just away, didn't want to make too much of it," another neighbor, Susan Taylor, said with a lump in her throat. But when everything came to light, everyone felt regretful. Could they have done something sooner? If someone had called the police earlier, would things have turned out differently? The news of Gene Hackman's death quickly spread across the United States and the world. Fans expressed their sorrow as they remembered his legendary roles in The French Connection, Unforgiven, Superman, and more. Many close to Gene were also shocked. A former colleague shared, "Gene was one of the greatest, not just as an actor but as a wonderful human being. It's truly heartbreaking." That evening, the Santa Fe police held a press conference confirming that there were no signs of violence and that the investigation was still ongoing. However, one big question remained unanswered. What really happened in that house? And is there something we don't know? The story is far from over, and the answers may lie in further revelations from Gene Hackman's neighbors. If you found this story intriguing and want to stay updated on the latest developments, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons right now. Share this video with your friends so they can explore the mysteries surrounding Gene Hackman and these shocking revelations. To make sure you don't miss any updates, be sure to turn on notifications and leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your take on these unexpected twists. Let's uncover these mysteries together. Life in the quiet neighborhood on Old Sunset Trail was always peaceful. But now, as the small details come together, Gene Hackman's neighbors are beginning to realize that there were many signs of something unusual before. 4 signs that no one really paid attention to until it was too late. On February 12, 2025, a call came through to Betsy Arakawa's phone late in the afternoon. According to telecommunication records, the call lasted exactly 47 seconds before it was disconnected. No one knows who made the call, and more importantly, no one on the other end of the line responded. Strangely, according to a source from the investigation, that call wasn't from anyone in Betsy's usual contact list. Not a friend, not a family member, and no one that the police could easily identify. A close friend of Betsy, Linda Carter, recalled that she texted Betsy that day to check in, but never received a reply. That wasn't like her. She always replied, even if it was just a short message. I thought maybe Betsy was busy or resting, but looking back now, I can't help but feel something was wrong. If Betsy really received that call, why didn't she respond to anyone afterward? Gene Hackman's neighbors can't quite remember the last time they saw him. Some people recall it being on February 10th, when he drove home after stopping by a grocery store, while others think they may have seen his figure through a window on February 11th or 12th. However, from that point on, no one is certain about anything anymore. The only thing they clearly remember is a strange detail: the lights in the house. John Miller, who called the police on February 26th, recalled, "We saw the lights flickering. It wasn't normal. It was like someone was turning them on and off randomly." Between February 14th and 17th, several neighbors noticed the lights in Hackman's house flickering at odd hours, sometimes at 2 or 3 in the morning. Some even mentioned that once, the lights flickered continuously for several minutes, as if someone was trying to signal something. However, looking from the outside, no one saw any movement inside the house, no silhouettes behind the curtains, and no sounds coming from it. Everything seemed like a spooky play, where the lights were the only indication that something was happening, but no one knew exactly what it was. The Santa Fe police later checked Gene Hackman's phone data and discovered another strange detail. His phone was still receiving signals until February 17th. This meant that Hackman's phone was still operational, still able to receive calls and messages for 5 days after the mysterious call to Betsy. But oddly, no calls were answered, no messages were sent, and there were no signs that anyone had used the phone. A longtime friend of Gene Hackman, David Foster, called him on February 15th. The phone rang, but no one answered. "I thought maybe he was just busy, but something felt off. Gene always called back, he always did." From February 18th onward, Hackman's phone was completely disconnected. This meant there were 2 possibilities. Either someone had turned off the phone, or the phone was no longer within a signal area. The biggest question is, what really happened in that house over the course of nearly 2 weeks? If Gene and Betsy had passed away before February 26th, why was Hackman's phone still active until February 17th? If someone was in the house between February 14th and 17th, who was turning the lights on and off? And if they needed help, Why did no one hear anything? A chilling hypothesis has been suggested. Perhaps someone was in the house with them, or after they were gone. But if there was someone, who were they? And why were there no signs of violence or forced entry? The neighbors began asking questions they had never considered before. Some regretted not calling the police earlier, while others began to feel afraid, wondering if something truly sinister had happened in that house, and whether someone might still be hiding somewhere. As the police continued their investigation, they realized that each new clue made the case even stranger. Who was the person who called Betsy Arakawa on February 12th? Why did Hackman's phone remain active until February 17th, but no one answered? What was the meaning behind the flickering lights in the house? Who was the last person to truly see Hackman and Betsy? These questions remain unanswered, but as the police continue to examine every small detail, one thing is certain. The silence on Old Sunset Trail is no coincidence, and this mystery is far from over. The silence that had taken over Old Sunset Trail was no longer the only thing making residents uneasy. After the police released their preliminary investigation results, one neighbor finally broke the silence, and what they revealed made things even more chilling than before. On March 2, 2025, 5 days after the police discovered the bodies of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa, an anonymous witness contacted the authorities. This person lived right next door to Hackman's house, just a few steps away, and they had something they had never told anyone before. "I swear I heard someone inside that house on the night of February 17th. This confession immediately raised a series of new questions. February 17th, 5 days after the mysterious call to Betsy, and the last day Hackman's phone was still active. What happened that night? The neighbor reported that around 1 a.m., while they were watching TV in the living room, a faint sound came through the window. At first, they thought it was just the usual creaks of an old house. But then they heard it again and again. Footsteps, not loud or hurried, but soft and slow, as if someone was moving cautiously inside Hackman's house. It wasn't Gene or Betsy, as they were always quiet at night, but this time it was different. The witness described the sound lasting for hours with occasional pauses, as if someone was standing still midway and then continuing to move. They couldn't see anyone through the window, but they were sure of one thing. Someone was inside the house. The police thoroughly checked Hackman's house, but found no signs of forced entry, no broken windows or damaged locks. So, if someone really was inside the house on the night of February 17th, how did they get in? A disturbing theory was proposed. That person may have been in the house from before. This would mean Hackman and Betsy might have let someone in, but then that person never left. Or perhaps someone entered without anyone noticing, hiding inside the house for days. But if someone was hiding in the house, why did they turn the lights on and off in the middle of the night? Why didn't they take any valuable items? And most importantly, what did they do in that house between February 12th and February 26th? Another big question arises. If they heard strange noises on the night of February 17th, why didn't the witness call the police right then? The witness remained silent for a long time before responding, "I didn't want to believe it, and honestly, I was scared." The truth is, even living in a quiet neighborhood, there was this vague fear creeping in during those nights. Since the lights started flickering oddly, since Gene and Betsy stopped appearing outside as usual, something was off, but we didn't want to think about the worst. If I had called the police earlier, maybe things would be different now. This regret wasn't just felt by the witness, but spread throughout the neighborhood. People realized they had overlooked the strange signs, not paying attention to small changes that might have signaled something far more terrifying. What worries the police the most is another possibility. If someone was in the house on the night of February 17th, they could have left before February 26th without anyone knowing. But who were they, and where did they go? Another chilling theory has emerged. What if that person is still somewhere nearby? The neighbors are becoming more uneasy than ever. Some people no longer feel safe sleeping alone, while others are installing additional security cameras, and everyone shares one common fear. If someone really was in the Hackman house that night, could they return? Instead of the case being resolved, it's becoming even more bizarre. The biggest question still remains unanswered. Who was in that house on the night of February 17th? The deeper the police dug into Gene Hackman's case, the more strange signs they uncovered. It seemed that someone or something had deliberately interfered with the technology systems in the Hackman house before everything fell silent. It wasn't just the mysterious disappearance of the two individuals, but also the erased evidence, altered data, and systems that suddenly malfunctioned with no reasonable explanation. Gene Hackman had a habit of wearing a personal smartwatch that tracked real-time health data. When the police examined the data from his watch, they discovered something strange. The watch recorded Hackman's heart rate as stable until around 11:47 p.m. on February 16th. However, just before the device permanently lost connection, it registered a series of irregular heartbeats. Specifically, around 11:30 p.m., Hackman's heart rate suddenly spiked from 68 beats per minute, his normal resting rate, to nearly 130 beats per minute, as if he were experiencing extreme stress or engaging in intense physical activity. A few minutes later, his heart rate dropped abnormally, fluctuating between 40 to 50 beats per minute before the signal was completely lost at 11:47 p.m. A crucial portion of the data from 10 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. had been deleted or was unretrievable. What does this mean? There are two main hypotheses. The data was either corrupted or deleted by an external agent. Someone might have accessed the device and erased the most critical portion before the police arrived. The smartwatch had been removed before losing connection, possibly by Hackman himself or someone else. But if the data was deleted, who could have done it? And why would they choose to erase the most important time frame? Gene Hackman's house had a modern security camera system with at least 3 main cameras, one at the front door, one in the garage, and one in the backyard. These were smart devices capable of storing footage on the cloud, but there was a problem. The front door camera stopped working around 7:23 p.m. on February 16th, just a few hours before Hackman's heart rate recorded abnormal signs. The police checked the data and discovered that the camera had not recorded any footage after that time. There were no signs of hacking, but the system had automatically disconnected from the server. The backyard camera continued to operate but did not record any motion after 9 p.m. on the same day. So what does this mean? Did someone disable the front door camera before the incident? A technical malfunction is unlikely, as these cameras are regularly maintained. If someone did disable it, how and why would they have done so? And why was only the front door camera affected, while the backyard camera continued to operate for a few more hours? The question arises, did someone enter the house through the front door without wanting to be recorded? The most suspicious detail was revealed when the police checked Hackman's security system. The family owned an advanced security system directly connected to a private security company, but according to data from this company, Hackman's alarm system had been reconfigured around February 12th, which coincided with the time Betsy received the mysterious phone call. A local technician who had worked with the system revealed a shocking truth. "I don't know who did this, but someone changed the settings. The security logs were erased, and the sensitivity of the alerts was reduced. It's as if someone wanted to ensure the alarm wouldn't go off." No one in the Hackman family had requested this change, and there was no record of a technician coming to perform maintenance. Someone had accessed the system, altered the settings, and ensured that if anyone entered the house in the following days, the alarm would not sound. Looking at all these details, a terrifying picture begins to form. On February 12th, Betsy received an unidentified call. On February 16th, the front door security camera was disabled. That night, Hackman's heart rate showed abnormal signs before the device lost connection. The alarm system had been reconfigured a few days earlier, causing it to fail at a critical moment. Some data from Hackman's heart rate monitor was erased. None of this can be just a coincidence. Someone had planned ahead. Someone had entered the house and ensured no trace was left. But who were they, and what did they want? One thing is certain. They knew exactly what they were doing. As the police continued their investigation of Gene Hackman's mansion, an eerie, unsettling vibe filled the house. What they found didn't resemble the home of a Hollywood icon. Instead, it appeared to have been deserted for weeks. There were no signs of activity, except for 2 tired dogs. The kitchen was filled with rotting food, with some meals untouched, and no evidence that Hackman had eaten in the days leading up to his death. This raised a crucial question. Had he been drained of all energy before he passed away? The forensic report showed that Hackman hadn't eaten in days, with no food found in his stomach. This suggested that he was unable to care for himself in his final days without Arakawa's assistance. Hackman's advanced Alzheimer's disease likely left him disoriented, unable to remember how to call for help, prepare meals, or make sense of his environment. As time passed, the mansion gradually became a dangerous, inescapable trap for him. Another unsettling discovery was that the house's air conditioning system was completely turned off. During the scorching summer months in Santa Fe, temperatures inside the house could easily surpass 95 to 35 degrees C. Without proper ventilation, the air grew thick and oxygen-starved. This oppressive environment may have contributed to Hackman slipping into a coma before he passed away. But why was the air conditioning turned off? Did Hackman forget to turn it on? Did Arakawa turn it off before leaving? Or was there something else at play? An unexplained reason behind it all? The police found no evidence of a power outage, indicating that the system was still functioning properly. Someone had deliberately turned off the air conditioning, but who and why? What unsettled the investigators even more was the lack of any signs of normal daily life. There were no new emails or messages on Hackman's phone, no visitors at the villa for weeks, and no grocery bills or food deliveries for over a month. It seemed as though Hackman had abandoned the villa, or perhaps he had lost the ability to maintain any semblance of normal life. The greatest mystery, however, lay in the basement. One of the officers stumbled upon an old wooden door that wasn't part of the original house's blueprints. Why was it there? When they opened the door, a spiral staircase led down into the darkness. A strange, pungent odor wafted up from below, sending chills down the investigators' spines. As they shone their flashlights down the staircase, a hidden tunnel came into view. What they found inside left them utterly stunned. Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa were once one of Hollywood's most iconic couples, known for their high-profile connections and widespread fan base. However, when they vanished from their own home, no one seemed to notice anything out of the ordinary. Why? because they lived a life of extreme privacy. After retiring in 2004, Hackman completely withdrew from the spotlight, declining even rare interview opportunities. He and Arakawa embraced a quiet, private life, avoiding social media and seldom interacted with family or friends. Those who were close to them noted that Hackman had become more reclusive over time, even distancing himself from those nearest to him. Their neighbors, accustomed to their isolated lifestyle, never raised any alarms. With Hackman's estate nestled in a remote part of Santa Fe, his lack of public appearances didn't seem unusual, as he had kept this low-key lifestyle for years. The truth was first uncovered by a maintenance worker who was sent to check on the house after several days of unanswered calls. Upon entering the estate, he discovered that Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa's world had fallen into an eerie silence. Betsy Arakawa was found to have contracted the H virus, a dangerous disease transmitted through the feces or urine of rodents. However, what puzzled investigators was the absence of any signs of rodents in the house. Hackman himself was not infected by the virus. If there had been a source of contamination, why was Arakawa the only one affected? Some speculated that she might have contracted the virus during a recent trip, but credit card records revealed that she hadn't left Santa Fe for months before her death. Could someone have brought the virus into the house? And if so, why? These questions remain unanswered, with the presence of the H virus adding another layer to the already complex mystery surrounding Betsy Arakawa's death. Gene Hackman is widely regarded as one of Hollywood's greatest actors, with a career that spanned over 4 decades and featured iconic films such as Unforgiven, The French Connection, Superman, and The Royal Tenenbaums. However, after his retirement, he almost completely vanished from the public eye. He stopped attending award ceremonies, avoided events, and severed ties with most of his old friends. The life of a man who once stood at the height of fame has now been reduced to an empty mansion and years of solitude in his final days. When Hackman passed away, there were no loved ones by his side, no grand memorial, no heartfelt tributes from colleagues, just a quiet house, an unsolved mystery, and a cinematic legacy that will live on forever. People will remember Gene Hackman as one of the greatest actors of all time, with 2 Oscars and dozens of classic films, or as a man who spent his final years in isolation, leaving the world with no one knowing what truly happened. The truth is that Hackman's story serves as a reminder of the fragility of life. No matter how brightly you shine, in the end, the most important thing is having someone by your side when the spotlight fades. For Gene Hackman, that light dimmed in an empty house, but his legacy will endure forever. The story of Gene Hackman and the secrets hidden beneath his mansion is sure to make you reflect. These strange discoveries not only uncover the darker corners of a Hollywood legend's life, but also raise unresolved questions full of mystery. What do you think about these secrets? Could they change the way we view Hackman and his private life? Thank you all for watching today's video. The revelations from Gene Hackman's neighbors have opened up an entirely new direction in the investigation, and we will definitely be keeping track of the latest developments. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any updates on this case. See you in the next videos, and always remember the truth. Betsy Arakawa, wife of Gene Hackman, was not supposed to use her phone on February 12th. Initial reports confirmed that she passed away on February 11th, but phone records indicate something else. A call, contradicting the theory, showed up as a missed call. Who answered it? Authorities now admit that the timeline of her death has been completely disrupted, making all previous theories hard to comprehend. If Betsy truly passed away at dawn on February 12th, then what really happened? Could it have been a mistake, a system error, or a haunting mystery within the Hackman household? As the truth began to unravel, the story became strange and hard to swallow. This is my humble offering. I can't swear that I know for certain. But if these speculations are correct, then the Hackman story has much more to tell. If you're curious about the passing of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa and the mysteries behind their deaths, don't forget to hit like, share this video, and leave a comment below to let everyone know. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any fascinating videos. Now let's dive into the mystery and solve these questions together. On February 26, 2025, in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the passing of Hollywood giant Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa Hackman shocked the media and fans worldwide. It all began simply. Betsy was said to have overcome the rare illness of hantavirus pulmonary syndrome on February 11th. A week later, Gene also passed, no longer in pain from heart disease, worsened by Alzheimer's. Everything seemed to be in order. Then, the bombshell from the Santa Fe sheriff hit. On February 12th, after Betsy was presumed to have passed, her phone dialed Cloudberry Health 3 times. Strangely, later that afternoon, Cloudberry called back but received no response. If Betsy had passed on February 11th, then who made those morning calls? More urgently, who was supposed to answer that call later in the afternoon? The mobile phone records don't lie. The sheriff's official statement confirmed that Betsy's phone had dialed Cloudberry Health 3 times that morning. This was an unsolvable twist. How could someone who had passed still be making calls? It got even more unsettling when Cloudberry Health called her back that afternoon and received no answer. But if Betsy had passed away, why was her phone still active? Reversing the timeline. If her health records linked her passing to the 11th of February, why was there a call on the 12th? Was there a slip in the medical data? Or did someone else use her phone after a solitary call leaked? Dr. Josiah Child, head of Cloudberry Health, spoke to the Daily Mail with astonishment. Mrs. Hackman did not die on the 11th of February because she called my office on the 12th, Dr. Child said. He explained that Betsy had called on the 12th to schedule an appointment. Weeks earlier, she had inquired about getting a heart test for Gene. On the 10th of February, she had declined, stating that Gene wasn't feeling well. On the morning of the 12th, she scheduled an appointment with a new doctor. Dr. Child swore that she had no clues about the supposed virus killer. He mentioned that she showed no symptoms of respiratory illness. The appointment wasn't related to hantavirus. But the strangest part is that Betsy never showed up. When Cloudberry tried reaching her in the afternoon, silence greeted them. This raises major questions. If Betsy was alive that morning, why did she miss the clinic if she was supposed to have arrived on February 11th as stated? Who made the call on February 12th? The calls demand answers, the actual timeline of her disappearance. If Betsy was awake on February 12th, the funeral marking her passing contradicts the first forensic conclusions. What did she say? What happened between Betsy and Cloudberry? Gene's health. Did it improve? Who received the ring if Betsy had passed? Who saw the call from Cloudberry? Why wasn't there a phone found on the spot? If someone else made the call, who were they and why? How do we interpret all these changes? Does it point to a hidden story? Could something have been concealed? The mysterious calls forced the Santa Fe police to revisit Betsy Arakawa. Hackman's ending is no longer neat. The call on February 12th not only disrupted the investigation, but also challenged the initial forensic conclusions. If Betsy passed away on February 11th, then why did her phone ring the following day? The sheriff's team committed to re-examining the phone records and timeline. But with these clashes, the case is becoming more complicated than ever. A statement from Santa Fe's sheriff left America stunned. Betsy Arakawa Hackman did not pass away on February 11th as originally stated. Sheriff Jonathan Ruiz stood. We have compelling evidence that Mrs. Hackman was still alive on the morning of February 12th. This means we must reconsider the entire timeline surrounding her death. The media remains silent. That lone statement shattered what people had believed to be the truth. Betsy did not pass away on February 11th. So what happened to prompt this shift? Dr. Josiah Child, head of Cloudberry Health, is tied to the strange call from Betsy on February 12th. Just days before reports confirmed Betsy's death on February 11th, Dr. Child was confused. Why did he hear her voice the following morning? In an exclusive article in the New York Times, Dr. Child stood firm. Mrs. Hackman did not die on February 11th because she called my clinic on February 12th. Dr. Child stated that Betsy called on February 12th to schedule an appointment. A few weeks prior, she had inquired about heart scans for Jean. On February 10th, she declined, citing Jean's illness. But on the morning of February 12th, she scheduled an appointment with a new doctor. Dr. Child swore that he had no clue about the alleged virus-killing drug. He stated that she showed no symptoms of respiratory illness. The appointment had nothing to do with hantavirus. But the strangest part was that Betsy never showed up. When Cloudberry called her in the afternoon, they were met with silence. This raises big questions. If Betsy was alive that morning, why did she miss the appointment if she had been scheduled for the 11th, as stated? Who made the calls on the 12th? The calls demand answers. The actual timeline is unclear. If Betsy was awake on February 12th, why did her funeral occur afterward? The first forensic examination was incorrect. What did she say? And what really happened between Betsy and Cloudberry? Did Jean's health improve? Who received the ring if Betsy was gone? Who saw the Cloudberry call? Why was there no phone found at the scene? If someone else made the call, who were they and why? How should we interpret all these changes? Does it imply a hidden story? Was something concealed? The mysterious calls forced the Santa Fe police to return to investigating Betsy Arakawa. The conclusion of Hackman's story is no longer straightforward. That call on February 12th not only disrupted the investigation, but also challenged the original forensic conclusions. If Betsy had passed away on February 11th, then why did her phone ring the following day? The sheriff's team committed to reviewing the phone logs and timeline. But with these confrontations, the case was becoming more complicated than ever. A statement from the Santa Fe sheriff shocked America. Betsy Arakawa Hackman did not pass away on February 11th, as initially reported. Sheriff Jonathan Ruiz stood before the camera with a solemn face. He opened the investigation, pointing to new evidence that shook the previously established facts. It began not as a mere decline in health, but as a mystery begging to be solved. Everyone believed that February 11th was the day Betsy Hackman passed. But just one phone call turned everything upside down. She had survived that morning. After the final ring, she vanished. The urgent question remains: what really happened to Betsy Hackman after that dark dawn? On February 14, 2025, the Santa Fe police received a frantic call from Margaret Ortiz, Hackman's longtime housekeeper. Her trembling voice revealed a detail that prompted immediate action. He was still there, having breakfast as if nothing was wrong, but she didn't answer anymore. The police arrived to find Gene Hackman, the famous star, sitting quietly drinking tea, staring out the window in a daze. Nearby, in the master bedroom, Betsy Hackman's body lay undisturbed for an undetermined amount of time. The real shock came next. How could Gene Hackman live in the same house with his wife for several days without knowing that she had passed? Was he oblivious? Or had he somehow suppressed the realization after Betsy discovered it? The initial forensic report indicated that she had passed at least 7 days before. Gene had been living with her without even knowing. They labeled it as hantavirus, a rare disease transmitted by rodents. However, a major obstacle arose. If Betsy had contracted hantavirus and Gene stayed with her for a week, why didn't he get sick? These medical experts were puzzled by the true outcome of Betsy's condition. Hantavirus spreads through the air, and given Gene's age and frailty, he should have been at risk, yet he remained unaffected. Forensic expert Dr. Caroline Vega suggested that Gene's developing Alzheimer's disease might have concealed Betsy's passing. Insider sources noted that Gene's memory had been fading recently, even though he had some coherent conversations. Medical records indicate that Alzheimer's could impair the awareness of major changes, such as the loss of a spouse. However, this doesn't make sense for Gene, who had been helping Margaret Ortiz every day with preparing meals, cleaning, and sometimes chatting with Betsy. How could she have disappeared for so long that the police had to consider it? Did Gene not know, or was he being questioned? Margaret Ortiz was very worried. She said that Betsy had disappeared from her routine. She would read books in the chair every morning. After February 11th, she was gone. I asked Mr. Hackman. He said she was resting. Ortiz admitted that she trusted Gene, thinking Betsy had a minor illness. She avoided Betsy's room and just did her own work. Then a sense of fear crept in. On February 13th, I heard the phone ring from Betsy's room. She connected it to the missed call on February 12th from Cloudberry Health at 3:46 p.m., according to police data. But when I approached the door, the sound stopped. Then Gene appeared behind her. He touched my shoulder and said, "Leave her alone. She's resting." That froze Ortiz. His look, it wasn't him. He seemed scared. The police investigated the days surrounding Betsy to find clues. Gene remained silent for a week, not calling close friends or staff. His phone recorded a message on February 12th from an unknown sender, but he didn't respond to it. Who wrote it? More importantly, was Gene unaware of Betsy's situation, or is there something he's holding back? The police presented 3 possible theories. Gene didn't realize Betsy was gone due to Alzheimer's. But why did others fail to notice? Betsy hadn't passed on February 11th, but after cross-checking the Cloudberry calls, who was there? Was Gene being kept in the dark or manipulated? Someone must have suppressed information and cut off his connection. If Gene didn't know, why prevent Ortiz from entering Betsy's room? The person who sent the unanswered message. If hantavirus had affected Betsy, how did Gene avoid it? More importantly, what happened from the morning of February 12th to Betsy's complete disappearance. This story is becoming increasingly strange. A tragic slip-up or something more deliberately arranged? At 3:46 p.m. on February 12th, Cloudberry Health called Betsy Hackman's phone. The strange change. She had been marked as missing since February 11th. Sheriff Raymond Keller was confused. Network logs showed that her phone didn't just receive calls, it had lit up multiple times from February 11 to February 13. A deceased person can't operate their phone. Who was doing it? The police searched Hackman's residence and found Betsy's phone beside her bed. All activity appeared untouched. However, location data showed that the phone had been moving. From the night of February 11th to the early morning of February 12th, it shifted twice inside the house. The first time was at 4:17 a.m. on the 12th, when it was active in the living room, near Jean's light. At 2:52 p.m., it lit up in the bedroom. Then, 54 minutes later, the missed call from Cloudberry came through. If Betsy had passed, who was holding her phone that afternoon? The call from Cloudberry went unanswered, but the network data indicated that the phone had not been turned off. Someone might have discovered it. Dr. Josiah Child, who made the call, stated that he didn't know Betsy had passed. She came to Cloudberry Health that morning to schedule an appointment. I called to lock the phone. This raised questions for the police. If Betsy had passed on February 11th, how could she have made that call? On the 12th, if the call was missed, someone must have seen it. The person who didn't answer was a stranger in the Hackman house that day. The police kept an eye on the house's security system, but Jean's assistant, Michael Henshaw, threw them a curveball. The cameras had been tampered with. On February 10th, there was a technical issue. All footage from the 11th to the 13th was gone. System malfunction or intentional deletion? Why did it coincide with Betsy's end? No videos, no alerts about Jean or Betsy for a week. This suggests a cover-up. Who wandered inside the Hackman house on the 12th? Did Jean really go alone, or did someone sneak in undetected? A shocking witness. Ellen Wexler, who lives across from the Hackman house, stepped forward. On the morning of February 12th, she noticed a car parked out front. It was a black SUV. No one came or went, but it stayed there for over an hour. Footage from Easy Neighbor confirmed it. An SUV was parked at 10:35 a.m. on February 12th. A check found no trace. The SUV appeared and then faded away, leaving no sign behind. If you find this story interesting, leave a comment with the number 1, and if not, leave a comment with the number 0. Now, let's continue the story together. Who was inside it? How is it connected to the buzzing of Betsy's phone after she stepped out to investigate her phone? The police discovered a deleted message from that morning. Recovery software retrieved it. "We're done. We need to talk," from an unknown sender. It was quickly deleted after being sent. Who deleted it? Betsy couldn't have. If it came on the 12th, then someone else was using her phone. Who? Jean knew nothing about it. Whoever touched Betsy's phone that day was there. The more this unravels, the less it seems like a straightforward loss. If Betsy passed on February 11th, who was operating her phone on the 12th? If she was alive to call Cloudberry that morning, what happened afterward? Who drove that phantom SUV? "We're done. We need to talk." What's behind that? A lost soul unable to call? So who hid the checks on Betsy Hackman's calls? The police were left stunned. The call on the morning of February 12th from Betsy to Cloudberry Health wasn't for her. It was for Jean Hackman. Dr. Josiah Child, who answered the call, told the police she wanted to schedule a heart test for Jean. "Sticks with me?" she had asked earlier. Child's statement reshaped the perspective of the case. Betsy wasn't just concerned about Jean's health. She might have sensed something was wrong. That call on February 12th wasn't the first time she called Cloudberry. Jean's health records show that Betsy had scheduled an appointment for him earlier, on January 29th. But suddenly, on February 10th, she canceled the appointment, citing that Jean was unwell. On February 12th, just 2 days later, she rescheduled. What changed between February 10th and February 12th to convince her? Why cancel one day and then pick another? The reason Betsy canceled on February 10th was because Jean was sick, but Maria Esteban, the housekeeper present on February 9th and 10th, saw differently. He seemed fine, having breakfast, walking in the yard as usual, not sick at all. I can tell. If Jean wasn't sick, why did Betsy use that excuse? Why did she change direction on February 12th? The pediatrician added something crucial. A few weeks prior, Betsy had called about a heart test for Jean. She was truly concerned, continuously asking about potential risks without any clear symptoms. Betsy had checked Jean's heart before, but why on February 12th did she uncover an issue with Jean's condition, or something even worse? It wasn't just his health. It was a secret digging deeper. The police knew that Betsy's Cloudberry call on February 12th had ended abruptly. The call log recorded a 4-minute, 32-second call before it was cut off. Dr. Child stated, "I was going over the test details when she said, 'I have to go now,' and hung up." There was no further questioning. Why did Betsy cut the conversation short? Did someone enter, hear something strange, or was it simply silence? A clue missed. The police continued their search and found a prescription receipt from Santa Fe in Betsy's bag. Dated February 10th, the day she dropped off Jean's first dose. Purchases included heart-strengthening medication, mild sedatives, and a home urine test kit. She had taken these items before canceling. What's going on? She had conducted her own check. Did Jean discover a reason to disregard it, or did he sense that Jean was in danger in some other way? What Betsy had gathered, evidence before the loss, suggests that she had heard something on February 10th enough to delay Jean's test. On February 12th, she reversed her schedule. 3 shots. She noticed a major red flag about Jean's health. She wanted proof. Did she happen to uncover something darker? Perhaps not related to Jean. Someone forced her to cancel the February 10th appointment, but she fought back on February 12th. Still, Betsy never showed up. It wasn't a coincidence. Why cancel February 10th and reschedule for the 12th? What had Betsy uncovered about Jean or herself before leaving? Why did the call abruptly end? Was she being monitored or cut off at the most critical moment? Someone might have anticipated that she would miss the spot. An unsolved puzzle. Betsy Hackman set up a health check, but instead of seeing the doctor, she slipped into a strange darkness. The case continues to raise oddities. If the police instinctively feel this isn't a typical case, Betsy must have had intelligence, and someone locked that information away. Immediately after Betsy Arakawa Hackman was said to have passed away, nothing seemed amiss. An elderly woman had passed peacefully, or at least that's what everyone thought. Then, everything changed. Call logs, health records, doctor testimonies, and strange ringing noises all pointed to something different. Betsy did not pass away on February 11th as claimed. If that's true, then all the previous theories are nonsense. The strangest part of all, Jean Hackman continued for a week after. They blamed it on age, but that neat or cunning cover-up went unnamed. Sheriff Nathan Caldwell shook things up with his statement. After new evidence, we are reworking the timeline. We cannot say Betsy Hackman passed away on February 11th. That revelation clarified the news. If Betsy didn't die on February 11th, why did Jean remain silent about her during that week? If she survived until February 12th, why did she leave? The burning question remains. Did Jean know the chilling truth? Every road leads to something happening between February 11th and 18, a reality that everyone is avoiding. Gene Hackman passed away a week after Betsy. They said his body was frail, but digging deeper revealed oddities. Gene's autopsy report overlooked a definitive cause. No signs of major illness, no signs of a heart attack or stroke. There was nothing indicating he had been on the verge before. He simply stopped. A sudden stroke of luck, or a mystery being covered up. What had Gene kept before he left? A few noticed, Gene remained silent about Betsy's loss throughout that week. No calls from friends, no swift gestures of remembrance, no whispers from the press. Why do insiders say that Gene was holding on to something in his final days? He mumbled things that no one understood, as if he were speaking in riddles. How did it all end? What happened during that long stretch of time? Bud said it raised something much bigger. Did Gene grasp Betsy's fate, and did it crush him? Or had he been hiding a secret in the darkest way possible? The police approached with red flags, like how Betsy's phone was still active after she was marked as deceased. The unanswered bell from Cloudberry on the afternoon of February 12th. Dr. Child swore that Betsy survived past February 11th, Gene's ambiguous passing shortly after. It should have triggered a wider investigation. Instead, it was quickly silenced. The coroner's report closed. No clear calls, no autopsy. The case files sealed from the media. It's off. It hints at a bigger Barry. Too many things fit too tightly for Betsy. She randomly logged out on February 11th, but calls and clues indicate she was active on February 12th. Gene survived a week after Betsy. Her mother made no moves regarding her loss. He escaped, strangely. No cause was identified. Exactly 7 days. The police changed the timeline but avoided a full answer. The records were quickly scanned. No loose ends to grasp. This isn't just a coincidence. It's a story left untold. One thing is certain. Gene and Betsy Hackman had intelligence. Now, both are silent forever. The most chilling part is that someone locked that truth away. Clues have been erased, witnesses gone, the police have sealed it up, but the questions still linger heavily. The story of Gene and Betsy Hackman ends in silence. Is this natural silence, or has it been planned? People might let it fade away, but those who follow closely know that it's not over yet. The truth may still be hidden, and if you search for it, you may survive to share it. This is just speculation. A story woven from the strange parts of Gene and Betsy Hackman's tale. It could be a pure coincidence, or a deeper truth hidden away. Regardless, the doubts still drift like echoes from the past. And it's possible that the entire answer will eventually emerge, reaching forever. If you find this story interesting and want to learn more, don't forget to hit share this video so everyone can know about it, and leave a comment below to let us know your thoughts. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so